Well, the haze craze seems with us to stay. After bursting onto the market, the New England IPA has fast become a favourite of beer drinkers around the world. Well, today I want to show you how to make a non-alcoholic version of that soft, pillowy, fruity, juicy beer that we all know and love. Stay tuned. Okay brewers, let's begin by talking about what exactly is a Hazy IPA or a New England IPA. Well, as the name suggests, it's hazy, in contrast to other American styles which generally like to be clear as possible. This style is characterized by a soft, pillowy mouthfeel and less carbonation than other American beer styles. Intense, fruity, hoppy aromas are the star of the show, with a much less bitterness, at least perceived bitterness, in the tasting. As such, the malt presence takes a back seat. It's usually a light, grainy, neutral malt that just lets the hops shine. Now, if we look at this style, it usually comes in at 6 to 9% ABV. So these are big beers, and the alcohol is important for lifting those hop flavors and aromas. So straight away, trying to do a low alcohol version of this beer is going to be a challenge, but we'll work through it. How are we going to go about it? For my grist, I've selected 1 kilo of Maris Otter Pale Ale malt. This will give us a biscuit, strong, malty backbone. Something interesting, something to lift the beer. Normally I wouldn't in a full strength hazy, but because this is a low alcohol version, we need to throw a bit more malt character at it. So that's why I've gone for the Maris Otter, whereas in a standard hazy recipe where I might be throwing 6-7 kilos of base malt into this beer, I might use something like an American 2-row malt that's a lot less characterful. Then, to add a bit more thickness and malt sweetness, we're going to throw in some Dexter malt, which you may recall, if you've seen the other video, worked very well for our American Pale Ale. Then we're going to put in 200 grams of Gladfield Go Nutty roasted oats. We'll see what this brings to the table. It was really nice in our oatmeal stout, so I'm hoping that this will bring a bit more nutty texture to the beer, but also a silky smooth mouthfeel. 200 grams of toffee malt to lift the sweetness of the beer, and 150 grams of Black Forest rye malt. This is going to add color, a bit of rye character, and also maybe a little hint of fruitcake sort of character that comes from this malt. So we'll see how this turns out in the tasting. Okay, so let's talk about our hop additions. Now, I haven't been able to add many hops to this beer, or many bittering hops anyway, because I want to keep this IBUs relatively low. The higher we'll get, it'll just get bitter and astringent. So we want to keep it fairly low because we haven't got a big malt character and alcohol sweetness to balance it. So I've gone for 25 grams of Amarillo and 25 grams of Pacific Jade at the 10-minute mark. Now, Amarillo is going to give us something similar to Cascade, so it's more floral, grapefruit, citrus, mandarin character. And Pacific Jade's going to be more of those New Zealand characters of the lime and stone fruit flavor. So hopefully that'll give us some of that and just a little bit bittering so that our beer doesn't come out too sweet or flaccid feeling. Then in our dry hop is where most of the action is going to occur. We've got 50 grams of El Dorado Cryo. So as a guess, that's probably equivalent to 100 grams of T90 pellets. The El Dorado is going to give a lot of stone fruit, citrus, fruity quality, and people even say a fruit candy type character. So we'll see what that adds to the finished beer. Nelson is also a heavy hitter with a lot of citrus and stone fruit. and I've added in 30 grams of Galaxy because that's all I had on hand. So hopefully that'll add a little bit more passion fruit tropical kick to our hop bill. These are my salt additions. Don't pay any attention to them. You'll have to work out your own based on your water profile. And I'm going to add 1.5 grams of aromazyme at flame out once I've got the temperature down to pitching temp. What this aromazyme enzyme does, it's a beta-glucanase enzyme. It will release a lot of those flavor and aroma compounds from the hops that will otherwise end up on the bottom of our fermenter, still locked into the vegetal matter. When we have a full alcohol fermentation, the yeast does a lot of this work for us, releasing enzymes, even just the activity in the fermenter, the bubbling, the CO2, all of this helps release these hop compounds, which doesn't happen in a low alcohol beer with very limited fermentation. So for this reason, I'm compensating for the lack of fermentation by adding this compound to try and do some of the heavy lifting that the yeast is not going to. And I've selected this Cellar Science Hazy yeast. I've never used it before, so we'll see how it turns out. Again, with these hazy low alcohol beers, I don't think it's going to matter so much which yeast we use because it's got such a little role in the whole process. We're not going to get much biotransformation, and we're not going to get an awful lot of esters produced because of the limited amount of activity the yeast does. For fermentation, I'm going to begin at 18 degrees for 2 days. Then we'll step it up 2 degrees each day. Being a low alcohol beer, we don't want to hang around too long in the fermenter. We want to get this thing fermented and cleaned up as soon as possible. For our mash temperature, we're going to go with a high temperature mash of 80 degrees Celsius, which will give us a fuller, thicker mouthfeel by preserving a lot more dextrins and producing a lot less simple sugars. All right, let's brew some beer. And this is where things start to go wrong for me. As you can see, there's not many of the hulls left intact, and that's going to cause problems for me later on in the video. It's at this point that I realise that the liquor from inside the malt pipe is going to drain out very slowly. That's one of the limitations of these older G30 systems. The wort can only drain down the bottom of the malt pipe, so if you mill your grains too fine, the malt pipe won't drain properly. The newer systems, including the G30 Mark III, have fixed this issue by putting perforations down the malt pipe. If you recognise this error early enough, you can add some rice hulls to help supplement the broken down hulls of the grain. But I was too late for all of that, so I used my mash paddle to move the grains slightly and gently to the side of the malt pipe and allow the liquid to drain through the bottom. Anyway, I've learnt my lesson and I'm going to adjust my mill settings to give me a coarser grind next time I use the G30. To ensure the food safety of your beer so that no one gets sick, it's important to take pH very seriously. Here I'm taking a pH reading of 5.12 of my unfermented wort before it goes into the fermenter. That's way too high, so I'm going to pre-acidify my wort to hopefully get it somewhere in the mid to high 4s. That way I'm hoping that when I add my yeast, there'll be a small drop in pH that will bring it down to my food safe level of about 4.2. In standard strength beers, the yeast will usually do this for us, so we don't have to think or worry too much about this process. But again, because of the limited fermentation in non-alcoholic brews, we usually need to add lactic acid somewhere in the process to make sure our beer is food safe. G'day brewers, I'm back with the final beer. And that's what it looks like. It's more of an amber colour. It's certainly hazy. It's got good head on it. If you would like a lighter beer, I suggest dropping the Black Forest Rye altogether and just stick with the base malt. Alright, let's give this a little bit of a smell and see what we've got. Excellent. So in terms of aroma, we've got a strong tropical grapefruit present, supported by quite a strong layer of citrus. So that's quite nice. There's also some pine in there, but the tropical and the citrus seem to be the dominant hop notes. Also, we get a little bit of malt character, this bready, I think, rye character coming through. Let's have a taste and see what we've got. So it's not a traditional hazy IPA. The rye certainly comes through a lot, not just in the colour, but also in the flavour. So you've got this bready, tobacco-like rye base note to the beer, which I think is helpful. And the Black Forest Rye gives these sort of pseudo fruity flavours in there, which gives the hop something to bounce off. So that's why I think it's helpful in this beer. But of course, it's not a traditional hazy. You wouldn't have that character in a traditional hazy IPA. Again, we've got the same hop presence as on the aroma. We've got this strong grapefruit tropical flavour with some citrus, and then the pine notes are stronger than they are in the aroma. So it's kind of balanced between all those. Again, that's not traditional for a hazy, but the more hops you add to these beers, the more pine you are going to get. And the fact that we don't have much yeast activity means we don't have much biotransformation, which means that a lot of that hop character is going to stay around from your dry hop. It's not going to get transformed into the citrus and tropical aromas that we associate more with a hazy IPA. So something a bit different, non-alcoholic hazy rye IPA. I quite like it. And if you've enjoyed this video, you should subscribe, hit the notification bell for more content. Also, if you're not part of a local homebrew club, why not check out which clubs are operating in your local area. At pubs, we meet on the third Tuesday of every month. We share each other's beers, recipes, and it's a great way to learn and progress your brewing journey so that you can make better beer. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, why not check out this one, which will show you how to make a low alcohol American Pale Ale. I really like this recipe and I think you will too. Until next time, keep brewing.